Hey Brandon, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on.
No doubt. As we just talked about, we're getting out of work a little bit early. We have beer on deck. It's a great time, especially a great time to have a podcast.
Yeah, that is much appreciated.
Yeah, anytime. So tell the listeners who you are and where you are right now.
So I'm Brandon. I'm the, co-owner of Superior Wilderness Designs. We're located in northern Michigan. We're about 40 miles south of the Mackinac Bridge right now.
And we have you on the podcast today because you run a particularly interesting and exciting company that a lot of people enjoy, especially ultralight backpackers. Tell us about the company that you work for that you founded.
Yeah, so we started in like late 2015, early 2016. We mostly make backpacks. Everything is made to order. So we do a lot of, it's like semi-custom stuff, not like fully custom, send us your dimensions, all of that. We've got a variety of backpack models that you can pick from, and then you can kind of like select from a few different fabrics that we stock, different colors, and then you can pick like, where you want certain pockets, that's like the main thing, add a pocket here, add a pocket there, select, whatever fabric you might want for the front pocket, things like that.
So that's a question I was gonna ask you anyway. That plays into it well. Let's be frank. There's a lot of ultralight backpack companies on the market, but the really fun thing is that everyone does something a little bit better. What's one thing, and you kind of, I think you alluded to it there. What does SWD do better than other pack companies, or what really sets you apart?
Well, in the past, I would say maybe the customizations is one of the things that kind of sets us apart, but we've actually in the past year or so, I kind of like redesigned like our whole lineup of backpacks, and just the comfort and the capability of them is like on a whole other level right now. It's as far as that, I think I mean, I haven't used many other people's backpacks, so I can't necessarily like directly compare them
Sure.
myself, but our stuff is like, it's really, really good in terms of like, you know, how much you can load up a backpack, how comfortable it is under heavier loads. It all kind of happened because we've gotten pretty into pack rafting in like the past year or so. And so I really wanted to make a pack rafting pack just because, we needed some. It was something that interested me. And I've just been interested in like, how do you make a backpack more capable? Just in general, in terms of like its carrying capacity and being comfortable and eliminating pressure points and things like that. Because it's fairly easy to make a backpack that can handle 20, 30 pounds pretty well. But as soon as you start to get anywhere above that, packs start to drop off pretty quickly. As soon as you start to hit like the 40-pound mark or so, I think a lot of them start to get somewhat uncomfortable. So that was kind of like a personal goal of mine, was like, how do we get these things, without adding a bunch of weight to them? How do you get these things to be able to handle 50 plus pounds, 50, 60 pounds, and, ultimately without adding a ton of weight? And when you do that, most people aren't carrying that amount of weight,
Yeah.
unless you're doing something like pack rafting or something like that, or unless you're on like a 3-week trip or something. But in turn, if you make something that is comfortable at, 50, 60 pounds, it's going to be super comfortable at like 20, 30 pounds,
Yeah.
So that was one thing where in designing this bigger pack rafting pack, like it ended up being so good that it went on to kind of like influence the design of all of our other packs as well, all of our other framed backpacks. And I ended up kind of like adopting a lot of those little tweaked designs into like our base, like our standard long haul backpack. That's like our most popular backpack. That's what most people end up getting from us. It's like a mid-sized framed backpack. So, and I didn't have to change that much. It was just like little tweaks here and there, upgrading certain materials and whatnot.
Sure.
And yeah, so I would say, to kind of answer your question, I think that is one area that really sets us apart right now, is the packs are very capable.
Definitely. And you bring up a really interesting point there that I think a lot of people that do MYOG know really well, which is the kind of relationship between the weight of your pack and the base, not the base weight, but the weight of the materials you use for your pack versus the amount of weight that you put in. That relationship is very interesting because normally it has to go, it's an exponential, right? It's going to raise the more weight. If you want a 40-pound, a pack that's going to hold 40 pounds, you're going to have to build a very burly pack. Kind of traditionally speaking, at least that's the mindset you have to be in. So I'm really interested to hear about how you have made that relationship where you can have a much heavier pack capacity while also keeping the weight of the pack very low.
So a lot of that has come from having like, a lot of through hikers use our packs, which is like that whole trial and error thing it turns into like, trial by fire, where it's like everything is happening very fast. If you even like have 10 people out there on a long trail using your backpacks, like one of them is going to completely destroy that thing, because like back when we went out and tried to hike the PCT, we were using gear that, we had made. And that was like back early days. And like, it all held together like pretty well for us. But then you get like, a bunch of other people using your stuff and they just find a way to destroy it, so having through hikers out there using your stuff is amazing because you find out what doesn't work very, very fast. You figure out the areas of the pack that need to be reinforced, how to reinforce them. And then, I like one of the major pluses of me, like still we're just a 2-person company, so we make everything ourselves, and I'm able to sit there as I'm making a backpack and think about better ways to do everything with each and every backpack that we make. And that's just kind of my natural thought process, is like, how could I reinforce this in a sturdier, lighter way? It's just like a constant thought that's in my mind. So, that having through hikers, you just destroy something, and, that, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm very much with you. That I want to get our beers open, but I have a follow-up question from that. So let's just chat about these. Let's mention these beers. So we prepped a little bit. So you have something unique. Tell us what you got today, Brandon.
So I'm drinking some Two Hearted.
Yes.
Bell's Two Hearted. It's kind of a classic up here. Classic for me.
Absolutely. I love it. So I also, we like to switch it up, keep it new. So I went with kind of a non-alcoholic beer today, actually, just to keep things fresh. So Athletic Brewing Company, the Free Wave Hazy IPA, yeah, I'm always down for a beer on Thursday, but also why not sometimes, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Keep it fresh. Okay. So the question I want to ask you, Brandon, and follow up to your last comment was, you've also done a lot of through hiking. You didn't just start the pack company because you felt like it. You have done a lot of miles and you've done a lot of testing kind of in your own right. Tell us about what kind of your pedigree of experience with backpacks and how you ended up creating SWD.
So, I mean, we pretty much started making gear like right off the bat. We started getting into backpacking. It was probably about 10 years ago now, like in our early 20s. We just doing some camping down in the Smokies and kept seeing like signs for the AT and whatnot. And it kind of just like got the gears turning. And I think this was like summer of 2012 or so. And we ended up deciding that we really wanted to do a long trail. and that we were going to take the following summer off and do something. And we ended up doing the John Muir Trail in 2013, and just kind of a general like national park tour that summer with like a John Muir Trail through hike, like kind of sandwiched in the middle. And then it was on the JMT that year that we got the bug to do the whole PCT at some point, because it was like July, we were going southbound and you're just passing PCT hikers the whole time. We're like, man, we got to do that at some point. And then it was 2016 that we decided to go out and try the PCT. And that was like, by that point we were, you know, making a lot of our own gear. Like we had made our backpacks, our shelter and all of that. And just kind of, you know, at the time just being like, you know, just broke kids that wanted to go travel essentially. And we technically kind of started the business to try to like raise a little bit of extra money to actually hike the PCT. And it was right before then, it was like winter of 15 going into 16 that we sold, like started up the website and sold, you know, probably like 20-30 packs, something like that. And actually the first like real legitimate hiking backpack that I ever made was definitely out of like completely out of fabrics from Ripstop. You know, it was all like Hyper D 300 and stuff like that. And I've got a picture of it somewhere.
That's awesome. So does SWD out or predate when you guys did the JMT, or did you start making gear after that?
I mean, I was kind of tinkering and making gear the whole time, even on the JMT, you know, using like tarps that I had made, and I made my quilt. The first thing that I ever made was probably back in like, you know, 2012, and I made a quilt, and it was actually like I got a bunch of old down pillows from like Salvation Army and whatnot, and it like the shell fabric and everything was pretty nice, but all of the down was just like old down pillows and whatnot. And actually that quilt's still going, like I still use it now and then, and yeah, it's fine. It probably cost like $80 to make it or something like that.
That's phenomenal. Wow.
But yeah, back we weren't like, you know, going hard on like making backpacks or anything like that. It was totally just us making gear for ourselves. And then around 2015 or so, it just seemed like a good idea. It was something where it's like, you know, we can make a website for fairly cheap and just take pictures of this gear that we're using. And we didn't have to invest like a ton of money into it to get it up and running. And it was like, let's just see what happens, you know? So even kind of within the first few months, we were selling packs here and there, not a ton, but leading up to the PCT, we probably sold, you know, 20 or 30 packs, and then put everything on hold, went out and tried to hike the PCT. We only ended up doing about half of it because I did run out of money. I was trying to do it on like $3,000 or so. And then it was once we came back from the PCT that year that we really got the business back up and running. So it was like fall of 2016 that everything really like kicked into high gear, and we've been doing it full time ever since then.
That's phenomenal. That's so cool. One thing that I'm reminded of with cottage vendors and with making your own gear is I feel like gear fails so much less than we think. You know, we're always so worried about it, but hearing about your experience just taking all your own gear onto the PCT and stuff, if we do a little bit of research and we go to the right places, we can end up with really good gear, even if it has a few mistakes in it. But rarely have I ever heard of many experiences where people's gear they make just completely fails, you know, catastrophically. But similarly, you guys jumped out and started your own company, a really big endeavor, frankly. And, you know, here you are years later, still chugging along. That's super commendable, but also exciting, I think, to a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, I'm amazed by it myself. You know, it's like every day I'm amazed and extremely grateful that it's still working. And there's some things where it's like, man, were we like kind of reckless with, just like, I mean, we kind of knew what we were doing, but certain things like taking a shelter like that we made out like onto the PCT, and like, dude, the desert in Southern California is insanely windy. Like there were
Yeah.
nights where I was like, this shelter is going to be torn to bits. Like there is no way that it's going to withstand this windstorm. And it was fine the whole time. We didn't take good enough care of the zipper, and the zipper did end
Hmm.
up just like totally giving out at some point. But that's pretty common in the desert down there. It's like
Yeah.
if you don't take
Yeah.
care of a zipper, like it's probably going to fail. But
So
yeah, I mean,
what sort of problems did you see with packs previously? And just to be clear, this is not to say that any packs have, every pack fits people differently. So there's a lot of good things about packs that people still design around. But what features or what problems did you identify with packs previously where you were really like, I need to make some of my own here? Or was it even just a costing? You're like, I can make this cheaper than I can buy it. So I'm just going to step out and give this a go.
it was for me a combination of a cost thing, and I'm just a natural tinkerer, like
Yeah.
anything. The
Yeah.
first backpack I ever had was a granite gear pack, and it was a great solid backpack. Like I shouldn't have done anything to it, and I completely like tore it apart and made it a frameless pack. And like that's just kind of the way I am. Like all of
Yeah.
my pants have like, the belt loops cut off and like my own little belt sewn on. Like I don't know, I'm a natural tinkerer. And the fact there's this kind of allure in, the fact that it seems like it's going to be cheaper usually, but then like, I always end up like screwing up the first version of something that I'm making, and
Yeah.
then you got to make another one. So but yeah, the cost thing was a big factor in me getting into making my own gear for sure.
I've always mentally had to budget for two items. Whenever I make something,
Yeah.
whenever I'm about to jump in, like it's not even as much. I mean, it is financially for sure, but I am fortunate where we have a lot of scraps and I get to
Mm.
use those. But I always had to think about, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to step out and make something for the very first time, I'm probably going to ruin it at least once. And
Yeah.
once I get past that, I get way more forgiving on myself.
If you really take your time and plan a couple steps ahead, it'll probably turn out fine.
Yeah.
But then, if you are somebody that likes to build your own gear, what's most likely going to happen is you're going to build the first one and then be like, well, it turned out good, but I want to do this next time.
Yes.
And I'm still guilty of that all the time.
Yeah.
Like you referenced our used gear section online, and a
Mhm.
big part of that is it's often my used gear of me making backpacks for myself. They'll be lightly used, and I'm like, well, I want to try this, so it's often prototype packs or just things that are lightly used from me or Ashley, and us deciding like, well, we need to try this, so that's largely what that section of the website is,
Oh,
when
that's
there's
awesome.
stuff available on there.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I was going to ask you about that. I saw that, and that's something I don't see from a lot of cottage vendors. I think it's probably one of those areas where it's really hard to get stuff back, and it's hard to implement systems to get that. That's where corporate places do so well. So I was really interested to see how you work that out. But now that makes a ton of sense. But it's also fascinating. I feel like people have like a piece of SWD history in those used packs, but also like. I mean, when you're tinkering and playing with pockets and size and tapering and meshes, whatever, I mean, no pack's really the same. It sounds like at the SWD, like if it seems like your product evolution is so rapid that no pack's really going to be the same.
Definitely, yeah. The evolution is super rapid, just because every single time I'm making a backpack, I'm thinking like, how could I change this and make it a little bit better, and I mean, you try not to change things like too much necessarily
Mhm.
without like having like a big announcement or something. But whether it's just like, how can we better reinforce this area, or whatever it may be. But yeah, and maybe the used pack section will still evolve, and you know, maybe if maybe we'll eventually get into something where like we could buy back
Yeah.
people's used packs and sell them or something like that. But yeah, for now it's mostly like just our own used gear.
Yeah.
But I've always really liked like the Patagonia worn wear is super awesome. That's like I mean I try to only buy stuff from that part of their website, you know, just because why not? It's cheaper, and I don't know, I like buying used gear because I'm probably gonna, you know, use it for a little while and then like want to sell it and try something else. That's something that I do a lot with whatever, a, you know, piece of insulation or something like that.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite parts of the cottage industry as well. I talked about this with somebody else on a different episode, but I think it was our Broad Fork Bags episode. But I love how the cottage industry, we were talking about the evolution of products and how I feel like people respond so rapidly to other new things. For instance, in the bike industry, a new handlebar comes out and the bike bag that you had didn't fit or doesn't fit the new handlebar. And I feel like you're also kind of saying a version of that, where as soon as you think of a new pocket to add or new reinforcement to add, you can add that on the next pack that you design. You don't have to wait till, you know, throw it through the line of hierarchy and questions and, you know, like board of directors and stuff. You can just do that on the next one. And that's so cool, especially when you find small cottage companies that can do stuff for you per diem, kind of like what you do.
Yeah, it's definitely like, you know, gives you a certain kind of upper hand with certain things. Like, yeah, if you want to switch the fabrics that you're using or tweak a design or something, like it's not necessarily going to take like 2 or 3 years to implement, you know, where like you have this huge inventory of fabrics and, you know, all kinds of stuff ready made. It's nice to be able to, you know, make those little changes. Or if you find something that doesn't work too, you know, like in the early days when somebody's like, hey, this part of your product breaks, you can be like, oh well, I will fix that right now, like immediately
today,
you know, on every single other product you're going out the door, like that will not be an issue, you know.
So something I wanted to talk to you about, and it pertains kind of to the pack rafting pack that you mentioned, is the idea of like geography based packs. For instance, we were talking with one of our adventure sponsors earlier this week who lives in Sweden, and she said that DCF hasn't really made its way over there in the same way, and kind of we deduced somewhat that people are afraid of the abrasion resistance. So it kind of got me thinking of this idea of how in certain parts of the country, in certain parts of the world, certain fabrics and designs will evolve some. So I was interested to talk to you about the pack rafting pack anyway. I think that's what you said, but also as it pertains to where you live, being, you know, in the lake state where you have water, we also have really thick forest. Do you see your design, and for SWD, do you see that as being more so a portion of where you live or more so of the action that's being taken with it? So for instance, like, you know, PCT, very different from Michigan, but the pack rafting pack might be a good conglomerate of both, where you're going to get in the water and be hiking a lot. Do you see it that way, or is it totally different than
that? I tend to think of things in terms of durability, cost, and weight savings for the most part. I mean, there's definitely, you know, certain environments like the Southwest or something like that, where it's like a very rocky environment. You might want a more durable backpack, but to be honest, in general, I feel like everything should just be fairly durable. Like no matter where you live or what you're doing. I mean, there's always going to be little things, or like if say you live in the Pacific Northwest or somewhere where it rains a lot, like having a fully steam sealed or taped backpack might be a higher priority. But I tend to think of things more in terms of like, like I said, you know, how much does it weigh? How much does it cost? And how durable is it? And like with the fabrics that we're using right now, they're kind of arranged that way. We have like the, you know, least expensive option is we're currently using Eco Pack. That's kind of like just the standard option, which it's similar to like VX21 X Pack. And then we're using some of the ultra fabrics, which are like a woven
Mhm.
UHMWPE face fabric, which is like super, super durable. And we're using two different weights of those. So there's the one is like 3.5 ounces per square yard. That's the lighter one. And then the heavier one is 400 denier. That's like 4.6 ounces per square yard. But both of them are like super, super abrasion resistant. Like we've been super impressed with them so far.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is, because that has been a lot of people's concern, just like with lighter fabrics, the abrasion resistance is sometimes something that can drop. So, I mean, that's crucial. I want to hear more about your raft pack design, or how you get that
Mm.
to shift the weight. I've made a handful of backpacks, and a lot of people that come on our site are into backpacks, and they've kind of used a pack as their gateway into MYOG. So for people that are familiar with, strap design and weight placement and distribution and stuff, how do you get 40 pounds on your back or whatever the amount of weight that you have comfortably in an ultralight pack?
Yeah. So a lot of it, I found over like the past year, like I'll load up backpacks, and 50 pounds has kind of been like my benchmark of like how,
Okay.
if I can get it to be like 50 pounds very comfortably, like I'll be pretty happy. And
Yeah.
a lot of it came down to um getting the right dimensions on the frame, and also just the sturdiness and finding like the right basically the right materials. Like we've always used just thin 1/2 inch by 1/8 inch aluminum stays, like two twin stays. And that was always fine for, just whatever, like up to 30-35 pounds. That was kind
Okay.
of like always what I said was like the max of
Sure.
our older backpacks. And so in testing, like for a long time, I was convinced that we were going to have to use some kind of tubular
Yeah.
frame, like
Mhm.
some kind of like tubular aluminum frame, like a U-shaped frame or something like that, if we wanted to up that carrying capacity. And it turned out with the new packs, all I really had to do was get much stiffer aluminum, which
Okay.
was kind of hard to source. We were using like 6061 alloy before, but it took switching to 7075 for the to be like the right ingredient in that
Huh.
part of the pack for the alloy of aluminum. And then just finding the right dimensions to use in terms of like how high the frame comes up behind your back,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
And so I've really found that to be able to carry that weight and pull it off of your shoulders, having a frame height that comes up to around like the bottom, or like middle to upper portion of your ear,
Yeah.
is kind of essential if you're going to have some kind of ultralight load hauling pack.
Okay.
And so it was kind of those two things were like one of the main parts, like stiffer aluminum, raise the frame up, and then having a super, super sturdy hip belt and figuring out how to attach
I
that
see.
directly to the frame. So that's all kind of like the
Yeah.
secret recipe, if you will.
That's super fascinating, and that makes a lot of sense, because uh I make a lot of like fast packed running vest style, kind
Mm,
of like that style. And it is, even in something that is 15 to 25 liters, very low weight compared to what you're talking about, it's still really difficult to distribute that weight properly. The pack height makes a ton of sense to me, trying to keep the height kind of higher, if you will, because everyone knows that the weight just sits at the bottom outside, right? Like that's the worst
mm.
kind of weight, when it's far away from your back and it's as low as possible, it just pulls you in the wrong direction constantly. So it makes a lot of sense to sort of compress that weight and keep it more balanced across your body. That's kind of what you're saying, right?
Yeah, yeah. And with, bigger packs carrying heavier loads, the one thing that always tends to happen is you get really sore shoulders,
Yeah.
is like that load will eventually just like start to tug on your shoulders. So it, this is kind of like, we kind of just came back to the way that load lifters were originally like intended to be
Hmm.
used on backpacks. We're like on these, like our pack rafting pack, the Big Wild, it's got like a big tall frame on it. And when you pull on the load lifters, you can just feel it pull the shoulder straps up. And it ultimately kind of like lengthens the torso length. So
Hmm.
if you wanted to, you could pull up on the load lifters and pull the shoulder straps like completely up off of your shoulders, where they're not
Yeah.
even in contact with it, and they're basically just straps coming down the front of your body that are holding the pack to your body, and then
Yeah.
all of the load is just on the hip belt. And that can ultimately eventually become uncomfortable too.
Sure.
Where like it's kind of, I I end up carrying like most of the weight on my hips and then having like a little bit on my shoulders. Or like lately, I've been trying to see if I can just like destroy one of these packs just by like throwing too much weight in it. So I've been doing like daily walks with like 70 or 80
Oh
pounds
my
in these
gosh.
things and just like seeing how it
Yeah.
goes. And that's like, it's definitely overloaded with 70, 80 pounds. Like 70 pounds isn't like too bad. Like it's 70 pounds is manageable, but you'll start to
Yeah.
get sore. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like by the end of 4 miles, I'll be like pretty sore, but it's fairly manageable. Going up to like 80 or so is like, it's just not comfortable the entire time. And that is like, I have to just totally split the weight, like 50-50 for my shoulders and my hips.
Yeah.
And they'll still both be sore, but it's good to take something up that high
Yeah.
in terms of like, how much it weighs. And then like, hey, that's just how you learn. You
Right.
learn how a pack should fit and how it should carry, and really like what its limits are, and at 50 pounds, like it's honestly, it's totally comfortable. Like and it's hard to even do like an actual backpacking trip around like in our
Mhm.
area and have 50 pounds, like unless you just
Yeah.
bring a bunch of beer and a
Right.
cast iron pan or something like that. So I don't know. It like you have to do something really long to,
Sure.
like a long,
Sure.
like 2 or 3 week trip to be up that heavy. But yeah, 50 pounds in that backpack is honestly, it's very comfortable. Like I can do 15 miles and not hate my life, you know?
All the weight weenies are just rolling right now. They can't imagine how you'd put 50 pounds in a bag, I think.
I know. Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's the thing is like, yeah, once you're actually out there, using it, it's like, yeah, maybe you only have 20 pounds in it or
Yeah.
something. But it's funny because we've been posting like a lot of pictures of like, yeah, our pack rafting pack, and people on Instagram are always like, what? Why? Who needs a 70-liter backpack? Like, who is
Yeah.
using this? And I totally went through that myself, where it's like, why do you need to bring a boat? Like, what do you
Yeah.
mean? You're backpacking with a boat? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But then I don't know, it's fun to like go places and
Yeah.
be able to, mix it up, like float down a river and walk back or vice versa. It's just like, I mean, I don't know, we're totally obsessed with the pack rafting thing right
Yeah.
now, and just all of the different areas that it opens up. And
Definitely.
it's pretty fun.
I think a trend that I see in specifically in the outdoor market, and I think it pertains to cottage companies as well, or at least just smaller outdoor companies, is uh, mixing recreational things in some way. Like I see a lot more people putting together either like DIY triathlons or adventures where they're going to be hiking to bike to ski or something, or people are doing multiple things. And it doesn't mean we have any more uh financial capacity to buy all the things. So people want a pack that can like go on a ski, like a backcountry ski tour and back and hike somewhere and ride somewhere. Like they're going to want that stuff. And like we talked about with the cottage industry, that is making it more possible. Like having a pack that could load up 20 pounds just as well as 50 increases your capacity of adventure so much more.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it was just something that's been, kind of, it was, I think, a gap that needed to be filled,
Yeah.
whereas like what why not be able to put that much weight in there? You know,
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
It's
It was something I wanted personally.
right. Right. It's a great, and I think you're right that there was a gap that needed to be filled. There are a ton of phenomenal ultralight backpack companies out there that are incredible for hiking. You know, like they are top notch. But I think you're right that there is does you can't buy 4 packs sometimes. You know, sometimes you need
Oh
one
yeah,
pack that's going to be
totally.
able to split the bill. And I don't know of that many that do that. I'm sure there are others. I'm sure some people, it's why they make their own sometimes, but I don't know of that many that can really split it to be kind of a multi-sport pack in that way, kind of like where yours is. That's really, I love that a lot. What are some features that people who have prototyped or used or bought your packs love most? Some people talk about pocket placement. Some people talk about shoulder strap width. Just what are, you know, making those up, but what are some examples of that for you that people really love about SWD?
Um, yeah, I think what people like the most is being able to go onto the website and kind of like build their own backpack and
Mm-hmm.
it feel like they're getting exactly what they want, you know? So
Yeah,
it's not necessary. I mean, there are certain combos that are like, you know, fairly popular, like getting a
sure.
tall pocket on one side and upper pocket on one side. But I think it's just feeling as though you kind of, you know, got to create something yourself, you know, and
Yeah.
like you're almost like putting it together. And that's actually something that I'd like to do at some point is have our website to where like you can kind of like build something and visually see what
Yeah.
you're putting together. But I don't know, we're probably still a little ways away from that. Um,
That'd be
but
really
yeah,
cool.
yeah. And I don't know. I think that that is a big part of what draws people to us, though, is being able to kind of just feel like you're creating something, you know, that's your own personal thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you have a direct hand in it then, you know, compared to just like acquiring, which is exciting for some people in some ways. But if you get to like place that together, then you know it's yours and it's going to function a certain way. And there's a kind of responsibility that you have to put together the best pack for your endeavors.
Yeah. And, you know, we're dealing with like, you know, like ourselves, it's always, you know, ultralight nerdiness is like, you know, people know exactly what they want. They're like, I need this pocket here because that's where I store my water filter, or I want to store my tent here. Like, you know, there's that the ultralight nerdiness definitely, you know, comes into play there.
Yeah. In your professional opinion, someone that's been working with textiles for a while and backpacks for a while, what's missing on the market? I feel like there's a lot of great things out there, but just as people that get to tinker and play with fabrics all the time, I feel like we always have ideas of stuff. We're like, I can't wrap my finger on this, or I haven't found this. What's that item for you?
Um, well, you know, the whole like UHMWPE or Dyneema essentially, like it I would like to see more products made out of that and see like a little bit more competition in
Mm,
that area, you know, just see like what people come up with, you know, with the ultra fabrics that we're using right now. It's like it's crazy to me how few fabrics are actually
yeah.
using that material for like the face fabric
Yeah.
of, you know, the fabric. Like one of the big things now is like laminates, you know,
Oh yeah.
X-Pack,
Yep.
DCF, they're all laminates, you know,
Yeah.
where they actually have like a waterproof layer amongst, you know, other
Mhm.
layers laminated to them, as opposed to using like a coated fabric, you know,
Yeah.
which was used more traditionally in outdoor gear. Um, but it's just amazing to me that it has taken so long for somebody to come out with something where they're actually using, you know, Dyneema or UHMWPE for like the face of
Yeah.
the final product, because that's where the abrasion resistance really comes from, you know, with something like hybrid DCF, you know, that layer of fabric is essentially hidden on the inside.
Yeah.
So like, which is has always kind of been like the main complaint with that fabric, because it's like
Yeah,
it's just a polyester face fabric and a relatively light one, like
definitely. Yeah.
even like the more popular fabrics, like the 3.5 ounce has like a 50D face fabric on it,
Yep.
and even like the 5 ounce is like 150D
Mhm.
polyester face fabric. And for what they are, those fabrics are actually like reasonably durable. But
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to push the Dyneema thing so hard, it's like it really should be on the face of the fabric, and it should be able to stand up to some real abuse.
Yeah.
We actually, with that Ultra 400 that we've
Mhm.
been using, we did a test like a couple months back. This was actually Dave Chenault over at
Okay.
Bedrock and Paradox. I
Yeah.
sent him one of our big pack rafting packs and told him to just like break it at all, at all costs. And he ended up like tying it up to the back of his car and dragged it along a dirt road for like 2 miles, just to like really, kind of like test the
Yeah.
abrasion resistance. And actually it was great. Like it did get one hole, like where the roll top stiffener was
Yep.
like rolled up, so it
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
there's like a very hard object rubbing against the ground, and it did get a hole right there. But overall, it's like the pack was like pretty unscathed after being dragged on a dirt road for 2 miles. So it's like obviously there's a lot of promise with
Right.
that type
Right.
of thing, so I think seeing more products with, that are incorporating something
Yeah.
like that. Or I know like you
Yeah.
guys have that Venom fabric, which like I haven't tested out a whole
Mhm.
lot personally, but just more things like in
Definitely.
that realm, it
Yeah.
is more expensive, but like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it is worth it. If you could really get something that will last like decades and decades, like it's totally worth it, even if it costs an extra
Absolutely.
like $30-$50 for a
Absolutely.
backpack or something.
Did he get a video of dragging that pack around with his
Yeah.
truck? Because I would love to
Yep.
see that.
Yeah, there is a video. If you search like challenge ultra weave abrasion test.
Perfect.
Um
I
yeah,
got to see that.
it's
So
pretty funny.
I can't make all your dreams come true yet, but I can say that recently, actually in episode 29, we were able to talk to some people from DSM, and
Oh,
in
nice.
early 20, or actually I shouldn't say early 22. I don't know what everything looks like technically, but in 2022, people from DSM and who work with the Dyneema fibers and outdoor fabric applications and stuff have told us that there are a lot of new fabrics coming out in the woven with DCF sector. So stuff where the Dyneema fiber will be woven into woven like high abrasion faces are going to be coming out kind of pretty strong in 2022, including a new fiber that they use in their glove and cut resistant market for like, I don't even know, tactical markets, I guess, but where the fibers are designed to like repel knife stabs and stuff like that, or cuts. So apparently these are super high abrasion resistance, and a little bit cheaper apparently than our traditional DCF fabrics have been. So I'm really excited. I haven't seen them myself yet. I don't even know what these fabrics look like, but it's kind of one of those things a lot of people have talked about and been like, I'd just love for DCF to be more abrasion resistant, or, tear strength is super rad, but it only goes so far if I throw it on a rock, So apparently those fabrics are coming. So we're all stoked. We're really, really happy to see what they come up with and see what those are. But there's a lot of good applications coming. We work very closely with DSM. So there apparently are really good fabric applications coming out with high abrasion resistance, and still high tear strength, kind of still all of those attributes that DCF is known for coming out in 2022.
Nice. Well, yeah, that's definitely exciting. I
Yeah.
figured at some point they would have to catch on and
Yeah.
be like, hey, we need something better here. Because
Yeah.
it always seemed to me like the hybrid DCF was almost like an afterthought. Like I think DCF makes like a lot of sense with
Yeah.
something like for a tent. I don't think that there's necessarily any competition for something like the
Sure.
0.7 or 0.5 ounce even, like
Yeah.
it's just going to be a very, very light tent, and there's so much fabric there. But with the hybrid DCF, it kind of seemed like they just like slapped a polyester face fabric onto their tent fabric, and we're kind of like, let's see if this works for backpacks, like it works pretty good.
Yeah.
But it's not like it's definitely very obvious that it's not like the be all end all,
Yeah. And for me, it's very specifically suited, I think, too. Like it does certain things incredibly, but it
Yeah.
probably isn't going to be that cross sport type of pack. What's something, Brandon, that you want listeners to know about SWD as we're wrapping up here on time? What's something that you want the Rip Stop on the Record people and MYOGers really across the world to know about your making style or SWD packs, or just something that you want to pass on from kind of maker to maker?
I guess I would like people to know that we're super grateful for being able to do what we do and to be a part of this community, and to be able to kind of be in contact with people that are doing the same things that we love every day. I get to hang out, and even just answering emails is like I get to hang out and talk to people about their backpacks. And we're definitely extremely grateful to get to do what we do. And if anybody ever has any questions about building their own stuff, I'm always happy to provide some insight.
That's awesome. Where can people reach you? I mean, we'll link all your website and Instagram and stuff there, but just let people know what the website is and what your Instagram is.
Cool. It's swdbackpacks.com. And then the Instagram is superior.wilderness.designs. And our email is like the longest thing ever. I still need to change it. But it's superiorwildernessdesignsllc at gmail.com.
Okay, perfect. I will put those in the show notes. People can click on that. Finally, as we kind of last question, what sort of adventures do you have planned coming up? What are you prototyping next? Kind of what's the next little thing for you?
Well, something totally different. I've always kind of had this like 1 pound framed backpack goal, like kind of like on my mind. And I don't know that we'll necessarily hit that, but I'm working on getting like a new backpack to kind of like bridge the gap between like our frameless packs and our framed long haul packs.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to maybe hit something in like the 18 to 20 ounce range. That's like a comfortable framed backpack, take it up to like 40 pounds comfortably, but be in like the 18 to 20-ish ounce range. I don't know exactly where it'll land, but that's definitely in the works right now as far as new packs. And we're kind of just having fun exploring northern Michigan right now. We live next to like a big old chunk of public land up here in northern Michigan.
Perfect.
We're by like the elk herd and all of that. So honestly, that's kind of like our main thing. It's like just hanging out, exploring up here. We're by a couple of rivers. We can, get out and do some rafting and just, go out and get lost in the woods for the weekend.
That's phenomenal. Brandon, I'm so excited to see what you come up with that pack. I've loved picking your brain. I love how your brain works, how you're constantly tinkering with new stuff. I totally identify with that. And it's been really exciting to talk to you and hear about what you do. Thank you for sharing this time with us.
Thanks so much for having me on. It's great chatting.
Absolutely. Well, we joke a lot that we have what we call the Rip Stop on the Record tour, or the Rip Stop on the Record field trip, where we need to go visit these people that we talk to. We've kind of talked to all sorts of people, and I can confidently say that none of us have been to Michigan. So maybe one day if we find ourselves up in Michigan, we'll come stop by SWD and say hi.
Yeah, honestly, Michigan's great. It's kind of like Northern Michigan and the Upper Peninsula are definitely like a little hidden gem. If
Yeah.
you're ever in the area, you are more than welcome to come and hang out. We'll do this same exact thing sitting by a campfire.
That would be awesome. That'd be fantastic. All right, Brandon. Well, I won't keep any more, but have a great day, and I'm sure we'll talk to you soon. Can't wait to see what you guys do.
Sounds good. We'll talk to you later, man.
Bye, Brandon.